The March Sisters are navigating the challenges of growing up during the Civil War. As they come of age, they face love, loss, and the pursuit of their dreams in a society that expects them to conform. Jo, Meg, Beth, and Amy are each unique in their ambitions and personalities, but their bond as sisters remains unbreakable. At the heart of it all, they are Marmy's Little Women.
Hey, welcome back to Movie Friends. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Seth.
Today we are talking about Little Women from 1994. Directed by Gillian Armstrong, written by Robin Swicord, based on the novel by Louisa May Alcott. Cinematography by Jeffrey Simpson, composed by Thomas Newman, edited by Nicholas Bowman, and costume design by Colleen Atwood. Starring Susan Sarandon, Winona Ryder, Claire Danes, Kirsten Dunst, Trini Alvarado, and Christian Bale. Hey Seth, what's going on?
Hey, little woman. Nope. Didn't work.
Hey there, little lady. Nope.
Yeah,
It's not
we were
great.
talking about this title,
Yeah.
and I had a real revelation on it as I was in the bathroom one morning.
Oh, do tell.
Because it sounds like Little Women. It sounds,
Demeaning?
yeah. I realized, it's not that the women are little, it's that the little people are women. You know what I mean? Like it's elevating them up as kids, as girls, that they're women, they're full people, instead of saying, oh, the women are little.
You know, to be honest with you, you did express this thought to me, and I thought this was going to be a different thought, and I don't think you need to actually say this thought.
Okay.
I really thought we were getting something different, but
No, I was like, oh my God, it's great. It's a great title. I love it.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. We got a new patron.
We do. Oh my God, it's so exciting.
Josie. Hi.
Yes.
Welcome. We're so excited you're here.
Yes. Shout out Josie.
Wow. So cool.
Did she join because of our Camp Nowhere episode?
I mean, if she did, I am pretty excited about that. I feel like our Camp Nowhere episode got more traction than I thought it would.
I
I'm shocked,
couldn't
Seth.
agree more.
I am
I know.
shocked.
I know.
It,
So many people sharing, commenting. We get a good response from our episodes.
yeah.
You know, we're very grateful for the community of people who listen and tell us that they're listening. But I was like, all right, Camp Nowhere, we're doing it. First episode of Mayshell. I'm really not expecting a big response from this one,
I
only
know.
because it's not a huge blockbuster film or
Right.
like classic of,
Right. Yeah.
the film canon, but people who love this movie really love it, including Josie. So thank you, Josie.
Thank you, Josie. So glad you're here. Just to stay on Camp Nowhere for just a tiny bit, I was going to sleep last night and I couldn't fall asleep. And I was like, oh my God, I totally gave the wrong answer to Seth about which camp I would attend because before I went to sleep, I read Dune Buggy's tweet about
Yeah.
which camp he would attend and he would go to computer camp. And I would totally go to Camp Broadway and work behind the scenes on the sets.
Oh, okay. Got it.
I just had to get that out.
You would go to Broadway just to work behind the scenes.
Yes. Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay. Hey, if you've been listening to the show and you want to be like Josie, patreon.com/moviefriendspodcast. Help support the show, man. Come on. What's the big deal?
Come on.
Come on, man.
Yeah. Come on, man. Join us.
Come on, man. You get access to all of our additional shows, Patreon, Discord, and you get voting rights for what we're doing next. We got who knows what movie we're doing at the end of this episode. And next month, June, is a patron voted theme. So we have
Have the
really no idea
people
what's coming.
have they reached out yet? Because I know we opened up the voting.
Yeah, we've got a few good themes brewing.
Wow.
So it's not too late, folks,
Yeah,
to hop on in and have your voice heard.
and even though this month is May Shell, the patrons get to pick the last movie of this month.
Yeah.
And Seth has no idea what we're going to be watching.
I have no idea. I'm in the dark.
Yeah.
Where I'm not in the dark, though, is with emails.
Email.
So we have an email. The subject line is a question, and it says, "Hi, movie friends. Due to a false presumption based on a Bing.com, other search engines are available. Search. Your podcast, Movie Friends, has been picked to sort out the casting for the Friends movie. All the original cast members have rejected the offer, but the studio are desperate for a dark, gritty reboot. Who are you casting in the main roles? Lots of love from Steven." Now, I am not a Friends watcher.
Steven, this is an unhinged question, and I really needed to prep beforehand.
I
Wow.
can,
Wow. The
yeah. So
use
it's
of
like a
gritty.
dark and gritty reboot for Friends. So since it's a reboot, I'm gonna deviate from their ages a little bit,
Yeah, I think we have to.
and I'm gonna go older. So I'm gonna put John Malkovich as Ross. Um, I'm gonna
Okay.
put J.K. Simmons as Chandler, and then I'm gonna put Danny DeVito as Joey.
No. Get out of here.
Then I'm gonna do Frances McDormand as Rachel. No, too much. Tilda Swinton as Phoebe.
Okay.
Who's the last one left?
Monica, Courtney Cox.
Monica. Okay, so Monica
Well,
is
originally
Ross's
played
sister.
by Courtney Cox. Yeah.
And you know what? Monica's gonna be. Oh wait, no, he said all the original cast can't
Wouldn't that
come
be
back.
funny if
So
we put one of them in there?
I was gonna say Monica can just be Courtney Cox,
How did you come up with your answers?
and Monica is gonna be Firuza Balk.
I don't know if I know
Yeah,
who that is.
I think I feel good about that. And then the naked guy, who is the only character from Friends that I know, will be Chris Hemsworth.
Okay. All right. That's a choice. I
Yeah.
mean, listen, I can't judge too much because you actually had answers. I did not have answers for this. This came very seamlessly from you, which
Yeah.
I'm always impressed by you, Seth.
Thank you. Thank you.
I need that cast photo.
Maybe I'll work my Photoshop magic for a Friends reboot.
Get them on the orange couch in Central
Yeah.
Park. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Steven.
Thank
That
you,
was a weird
Steven.
one.
Yeah, but we like weird questions. So
We do. And I would love to hear from other people actually
yeah.
what your modern Friends reboot cast would be.
Yeah. I'll think of mine.
We got another email. Subject is Camp Nowhere,
Yes.
and it says Space Jam.
Yeah, referring to our live show that's happening on
Yeah,
September 21st. Woo!
September 21st, Long Island, New York.
Yep.
Space Jam.
Be
You gotta
there or
come out.
be square.
We've got a lot of funny ideas brewing.
Oh,
This
man.
one might be more ridiculous than Shrek 2.
I think
In
it's
order to
going to
know,
be.
yeah, you gotta be there. It's gonna be fun. And it's free.
Right.
Look, one day, these live shows, they ain't gonna be free anymore. You know? We're gonna be charging the big bucks.
We're going to be milking the teat for the moolah.
Okay. Sure, yeah. You might have to pay a whole $15.
We don't want to threaten you, but that's where we're at. Come see us free.
I love the idea that someone would be willing to like travel all the way to see us, but the $15 entry fee would
Right?
be like the deal
I
breaker.
know.
Like, oh yeah.
Yep.
Okay. They also say this backwards show is freaking me out, meaning that you're doing all of the hosting duties.
Oh, no. Well,
And then they say, I miss Richard Simmons with a tear face.
yeah.
This is definitely one of the most wacky plots in a decade of movies like that. I remember this movie fondly. P.S. Christopher Lloyd feels like an underrated actor, and I agree.
Yep.
P.S.S. Little Women, and P.S.S.S. Joe Stan for sure.
Yes. Thank you, emailer.
And this is from Ben.
Ben. Well, Ben, don't worry. It's only 3 more weeks of me in the driver's seat. So hopefully then your world will be back to normal.
Hey, if you want to be like Steven and Ben, send us an email, moviefriendspodcast@gmail.com. Let us know what you think about Space Jam or reboots or Little Women, even.
Yeah, please do.
Hey, before we begin talking about the movie, though, we're going to write down each other's rating predictions. I've got my new little notepad here.
Do you have your dip pen? Did you get your candle
I've got
going?
my pencil.
Okay. I'm going to pretend this is a dip pen.
There you go.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
All right, I'm locked in.
Me too.
Mike, do you know what I love most about movies?
Oh, that's easy, Kier. Celebrity gossip.
No. Though I do love a good A-list rivalry.
Is it the civil film discourse that you find on social media?
Oh, Mike. No, what I love most about movies is watching them and obsessing about them, learning more about their history, how they're made, and okay, maybe I love the behind-the-scenes drama too.
Hey, that's what I love. And it's why we started the Filmographers Podcast, the show where we study an entire director's career, one film at a time.
In our first season, we're focusing on Steven Soderbergh, a man who's directed movies you know and love like Ocean's 11, Out of Sight, and Magic Mike. And movies you don't know you love yet, like Bubble and Schizopolis.
No stone unturned. That's what makes us the Filmographers.
Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You'll also find all our episodes at filmographerspodcast.com.
Also, you can follow us on Instagram or X, where you'll find us trolling for the latest celebrity gossip.
Seth and I talked a lot about this off mic, and we kind of just want to treat this discussion as it is just discussing Little Women from 1994 because we don't want to compare it to the other film adaptations. We're not going to compare it to the novel and what what was changed, what was left in.
Yeah.
Because there's been 7 film adaptations and there's been miniseries, and it's an institution at this point.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
we're just going to treat this little beauty of a movie as a special little gem. And Seth, you've seen this before, so you didn't record a pre-watch thought. But
Correct.
I want to start off with asking you, how was it watching this time around? When was the last time you saw it? And also like your relationship with this movie.
Absolutely. This comes out in 94, so I was like 6 years old, and we got the VHS of this, and we watched this all the time. Like,
You did?
this wasn't just a Christmas. Oh yeah, this wasn't just like a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
We just watched this all the time growing up.
Wow.
And then when my sisters got older, because I'm older than both of my younger sisters,
Mhm.
they got into watching it more. And so I watched it, when I was younger, and then like all throughout my life.
So you've grown up with it.
It's great.
You've grown up with it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Do you consider this a Christmas movie? It premiered on Christmas Day in 1994. It opens and it's Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And we see Christmas happen twice in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not, while it gives me all the Christmassy, cozy vibes, it's not really a Christmas movie.
No, when I think about this movie, I don't really think about Christmas.
Right. Yeah.
But I understand watching this around Christmas because it does include, like you said, 2 of them. So
Yeah.
no, this is an all time of year, anytime, throw on Little Women.
Well, that's interesting because I have loved this movie probably since I first saw it, which I was probably around 7 or 8. And I was really trying to dive deep into like how my love really started with this and why I was so drawn to it. And I think
Yeah.
it really starts with American Girl dolls.
Oh, okay.
And I grew up with American Girl dolls. I had a lot of them. My sister and I both did. And I loved Kirsten and I loved Samantha.
Sure.
And their stories were around the 1850s to the 1900s. And then on top of that, I was obsessed with What?
I'm sorry, you said Kirsten and I said, uh-huh, because I thought you meant Kirsten Dunst,
No.
and now I'm realizing that you're talking about
Yes,
dolls.
Kirsten.
I do not know who Kirsten and
Okay,
Samantha,
they're
the
American Girl
American
dolls.
dolls, are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so they were my two favorites. So then I was also very obsessed with Old Bethpage Restoration. Did you ever go there? Old Bethpage Village Restoration?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So it's essentially a museum on Long Island, and it's a historical site, and they have 19 historical homes and buildings from the 1600s
Oh,
to the late 1800s. And so this was a field trip we went on. Anyway, what I'm getting at, I was like very into this aesthetic.
got it.
And every December, Old Bethpage Restoration, they have candlelight evenings. And so you go and you tour the homes, and it's completely pitch black, and the homes are just lit by candlelight. And it's my most favorite thing ever.
And you still do
I
this?
still do this. I
Okay. All
make
right.
Aunt bring me. I'm like, I put it in his calendar, buy the tickets, take Mitch wife on a date to candlelight evenings.
Okay.
Anyway, so I grew up watching this movie, and I have evolved over time with Joe, and she truly has been like
Mm,
my most favorite literary character, film character, kind of like a mentor in a way.
mm, mm.
But I usually watch this movie around Christmas time by myself on Christmas Eve, and I cry. So
Mm-hmm.
watching it this time in May really kind of threw me. And I really had to force myself to go to that place because this movie for me is emotionally exhausting, and I pretty much cry from start to finish. This was tough. I have to be honest with you, it was really tough.
I remember you talking about this. This is your Christmas time movie.
Yeah.
My Christmas time movie, for some reason, became the Hugh Jackman Les Mis musical
Okay.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you told me about how much it makes you cry, and I haven't seen this in probably like 5 years,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
So it'd been a little while, and I watched it with my two boys, and I was like, I wonder if this is like a Michelle connection that makes her cry. You know what I mean? Like, and then less than 6 minutes in, I was already tearing up.
It's the score, right? The most gorgeous score ever.
The score is great. I don't know that it's just the score as much as the Little Women, but
Sure.
yeah. I held it together, but I did, yeah, you cry multiple times watching this movie.
Yeah. Joe, like I looked up to her as a kid, but then felt her so much as I got older, and I still do today, of just the fact of like wanting to change, but you can't.
Hmm.
Wanting to embrace and be a dreamer, but actually that's pretty scary. And wanting your home and foundation to stay the same so you can come home to it because you need
Right.
that foundation to grow.
Right.
And then grieving what is changing. And I feel like
Mm-hmm.
this is just me constantly.
Right.
Yeah.
What I love about this version of the story is it feels like so much emphasis is put on the special world that the home is,
Hmm.
and it's not as much about all of their individual lives. Like, this version is very Joe heavy, like super Joe heavy, right?
Yeah.
And I found myself for the first time ever being like, oh, why don't I get more Meg? Like, I want a little bit more Meg this time around, or
Hmm.
a little bit more Beth. I never realized how far Beth is in the background of this movie,
Did you notice? I mean, we're setting Beth up with sickness right from the beginning. Like they are
Mm-hmm.
lighting the candles, singing Christmas carols, and Marmee comes home and she goes, "Oh, Beth, are you feeling better from your cold?" And it's like,
Mm,
I never noticed that before. Like right off the
yeah.
bat, we're like, "Oh, Beth."
It's very universal, like on an emotional level,
Yeah.
because whether or not you had that or you wanted that, it's just it's just depicting it like so strongly that unless you're in a third party, which is no, I have no interest in like family, or I want to be by myself, which is fine too.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But I have 7 siblings. And so like so many of the relationship dynamics in this all ring true for me, like in many different ways. And then when I was a kid, I was close to Lori. I had a family that I was friends with that have 9 kids, and 7 of them are girls.
Whoa.
And they like lived in this big house, and to me they were kind of like the March sisters, and I would go and like spend time with them. One time when I was a kid, I went and spent like 2 weeks
Wow.
with, like living there, and I had my own family and
You
siblings
had your own
at home.
family. Yes. We know that.
But I'm just saying, like, unlike Lori
Yeah.
in the movie, who
Right.
is like, they describe him as a captive,
I know.
of old Mr. Lawrence.
Right.
I still experienced that, like, oh my gosh, like, what's going on over there, kind of, and like, who are all of these girls? And you're not interested in them like romantically.
Right.
It's just fascinating to be around them and see, what they're like and what they're interested in. And they're interested in weird things that you're not. And so, yeah, this movie is tied up in a lot of different memories for me in my life.
Yeah. I wish I could just sit and be quiet and you could feel the energy coming off of me, and then you could feel how I feel about this movie. While I was preparing for this, I'm like, I don't know even how to talk about this because I love it so much, and we could be here for like 5 hours.
Yeah.
Part of me wanted to go scene by scene. Part of me wanted to tell you all the times a cat appears. I mean, all the kittens.
Well, oh,
Well,
yeah.
don't judge the kittens. This is a big part.
No. I have the standout scene for me when a cat appears is when we have flash forward and Amy's like painting the teacup and everyone's sitting around, and then we pan over and Beth is just like so small on this little bench, and she's got a little cat with her, and I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Nothing is more comforting, though, to have a cat snuggle with you and hear the purr.
Yeah.
But I say that all to know we have to talk about this movie in some way or another. So let's just go through the
Right.
sisters. I figure we'll do that.
Sure.
Okay. So
Sure.
let's start with Meg, portrayed by Trini Alvarado. You said you wanted to know more about her this time around. So tell me how you feel about Meg and what you would like to know more about.
So as a kid, I just perceived her as this older, boring, she ends up with the tutor guy,
Yeah, John Brooke.
and she didn't seem as like emotionally outspoken or funny or like interesting as everyone else. And then this time around, I was just like, oh my God, I love you. Like, I love you so much. And I did find her interesting, and I found all of her looks. And when she goes and the horrible racist rich girls,
When they're like the
uh
marches, they have thoughts.
oh
They
my
have opinions
gosh.
on slavery.
Yeah. Ugh.
Whoa.
They're like, oh well, this silk is made right here. And she's like, yeah, by slave child labor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're like, oh, it's so nice of you to remind us.
I'm going to make you my pet.
Yeah, that whole thing. I think I've told the story on the show before about my best friend growing up was what we would have called back then a tomboy.
Mm-hmm.
And we had these neighbors who were very effeminate female girls, and they were constantly just ragging on her about makeup and this and that. And I would just stand there, and it would just make my blood boil so much, because I was like, just leave her alone.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't need to be like you, and we're having fun, go away.
Right.
So I experience all of those same feelings as I watch this scene with Meg, where I'm like, she looks great. and like she doesn't need your help, kind of a thing.
Yeah. And I love it,
But
even though she's trying to fit in and wants to, she still like stands her ground.
yeah, yeah,
And I was actually very interested in Meg this time around. So I agree
yeah,
with you. Yeah.
yeah. And then I also always was like, this tutor guy sucks, and it's crazy how like age just changes
Yes.
your whole perception of
Yes. Uh
things.
huh.
Because this time around, it's like, oh, wait, he actually doesn't really say or do anything wrong.
No.
He takes Marmee down to Washington to the hospital. He's cutting cabbages later in the movie. Like,
With Hannah? Yeah. Yeah.
like I was like, wait, why did I ever think that he was anything other than a nice guy?
Yeah.
You know?
He's just so quiet. He's just so quiet. And in in comparison, in contrast to Lori,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
he's also so much, he's mature and he's older.
yeah. And we should say, obviously, this is a movie taking place in 1860
Mm-hmm. 18, yeah.
something.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we do not agree with all of the social norms and regulations that are purported,
Sure.
but like that's a given. Like,
Yes.
come on, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved Meg this time around. Like, I loved her.
Yeah, I did too. I want to talk about Beth, portrayed by Claire Danes. Claire was like
Yeah.
15 years old playing this role.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. 14, 15.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That is unbelievable.
So you said you never noticed how much she really is in the background this time around.
Mm-hmm.
How else did you
Mm-hmm.
feel about her?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could, look at this character in this movie and rightly critique her for being written so heavily like a martyr and a tragic character,
Mm-hmm.
because again, watching it as more of an adult, and like you already mentioned, it's just like the through line of every scene that she's in is like, oh, she's so quiet, she's so nice, she's so sweet and giving, and wouldn't it be the worst thing ever if she died, you know?
Right.
And so I think that that is like a legitimate criticism of this movie, but I don't really care.
Yeah.
Leave Beth alone. Don't say anything mean about her
Yeah.
or I'll kill you.
Right. Right. And
That's kind of how I feel.
I think Claire did an amazing job. Her lip quivering.
Ah,
Like we see it first when she goes to take care of the Hummels and those
yeah.
kids have
Mhm.
scarlet fever, and
Yeah.
the mom they're German, and so the mom, she can't really understand them. The mom hands her the crying baby, and Beth doesn't know what to do, and she's just like
Right.
so upset and crying. I was like, oh my god, here we go. Here's the
Yeah.
downfall though. Like if you've seen it so many times, you're just waiting. I feel like that's the problem with
Yeah.
this movie. You're waiting for, unfortunately, Beth to die.
Hmm.
You know it's coming.
And it came much later in the movie than I had remembered.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't
Yeah.
remember it coming so close to the end.
After 4 years pass,
Yeah.
she just has
Yeah.
a weakened heart.
Right.
So,
Right.
right. Beth, I read a lot of articles and interviews with the producers and the director and everybody who worked on this film. And they said they like position Beth to be the strongest character
Hmm.
because of when she's dying and it's her and
Mm-hmm.
Joe. And she delivers the line, "Why does everyone want to go away? I love being
Mm-hmm.
home, but I don't like being left behind. Now I'm the one
Right.
going ahead. I am not afraid. I could be brave like you." I'm glad I made that out without crying, because that is
Yeah. Oh,
like,
I'm tearing
yeah,
up
me, yeah.
just from hearing it.
Um, what's crazy to me is the only scene they had to refilm was this scene,
Mm-hmm. Wow.
because the first
Wow.
one was unusable when they got to the editing. It was like the chemical, it was like stained. So they had to reshoot this.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
But they made
Wow.
some
Wow. Wow.
changes. They made it so Claire would reach out and touch Winona's face. And yeah, Yeah. It's an extremely emotional. I am crying hysterically. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's as someone who leaves, I suppose I could say, as someone who does try things and wants to like go out into the world and, be like Joe, and you don't often think about the people in your life as like leaving them.
Mm-hmm.
You just think of you as going,
Mm-hmm.
like.
Yeah.
So for Beth to kind of hold all this in until this moment where you can't fix it, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's over, her story ends here. This isn't like a deathbed angry confession. I'm yelling at you. She's just letting out everything that
Yeah.
she's wanted to say. And it's so like heartbreaking that this is how she has kind of viewed her relationship to her sisters.
Right.
Why does everybody have to leave? Why does everybody, I don't mind, but I don't like being left
Yeah.
behind. And it's like, oh my God. And she says, I was never like the rest of you. I was never making
Yeah.
plans for what I would do, grand things that I would do later in life. It's devastating. Claire Danes is incredible in this. Great use of tears and spit
Oh
and
my gosh.
eyes, and
Everything.
just knowing that she was like, I didn't realize she was that young
Yeah.
when she did this. I knew she was young, when she did Romeo and Juliet, so I should have
Yeah.
pieced those two
Well, at
things
this time,
together.
she's
But
doing My So-Called Life.
oh, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
I also want to shout out her performance when they present to her the piano. It
Oh,
wasn't in the script for her to cry, but the
yeah,
crying just came to her, and then everybody else
yeah,
around her was crying. I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine.
yeah. And like that moment too, where Mr. Lawrence is like, I should have given this to you like years ago. It's it's adding
Mm-hmm.
more tragedy to what should be like this great
I
happy
know.
moment, and then you realize like, oh, there's still this air of like leaving Beth out, or like forgetting about her, or
Yeah.
like not doing something for her until it's like a little too late. It's just like it's it's incredibly painful.
Yeah.
It's incredibly painful.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't mind. Like, do you think it's too much?
I don't, because I don't
I
I
don't
don't look
either.
at her, and like you said, I don't look at her as like a martyr. I don't look at her as like it's presented to us in a way where it's like over the top
Mm-hmm.
at all.
Yeah.
Like, I really think Claire just did a beautiful job executing her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Amy, Kirsten Dunst,
Yeah.
firecracker. Yo, people hate Amy.
People do
They
hate
have a
Amy, and
lot of issues with her. And you know what? First off, I think a young Kirsten Dunst, I think she was 12 in this, did an amazing job. She was like on set.
absolutely.
She was the first one to know all of her lines. So she kind of like set the
Wow.
precedent. And Winona was like, okay, tomorrow we'll show up and we'll all know our lines because
Wow.
Kirsten knows hers. But she knows what she wants. The girl knows
Yeah.
what she wants.
I went into this kind of like, I want to take note of young Amy.
You're
You
right.
know.
Let's actually, not to cut you off, but I do want to talk about Kirsten Dunst as young Amy and Samantha Mathis as older Amy. So we
Yeah.
can treat
Yeah.
them as two separate, but obviously they're one entity. But go ahead.
And I think Amy gets a bad rap, but it's so unfair
I know.
because she's a child.
Right.
Like, people hate her for being a little girl, and I think that maybe people just hate little girls.
Do
You
they
know?
hate Little Women?
Maybe. Well, yes,
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 they do.
they do.
They do.
They do.
Yeah.
But like, I didn't mind her as much
No.
this time. She's concerned about limes. I was watching with my son, like I said.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, "What do limes mean? What's a lime?" I was like, limes, like the fruit, like a lime. And he's like, "Why would she care about limes?" I was like, "I don't know. Why would you care about Pokemon cards?"
Right.
It's like, it's the 1860s. This is just what they. Who cares? Fidget spinners or
Yep.
whatever garbage kids are into at any time, you know?
Oh, limes, they're all the rage.
And she has this big concern about growing up. She has this big concern about falling in love and being kissed.
Mhm.
And this is taking place during the Civil War. Their father is gone, which I don't know if you want to. I have a thought about that.
Absolutely. But finish your Amy. Let's finish Amy and
Yeah.
we'll table dad and we'll talk about him and Marmee.
And so we look at all of Amy's kind of like desires as like frivolous and stupid and
Materialistic, vanity, right? She always has the clothespin on her nose, trying to fix the shape
yes.
of it.
Yes. Which I didn't gather until this time around. I
Yeah.
was like, why is
Yeah.
something smelly? Which I mean, yeah, 1860s.
You do what you got to do.
Can't imagine.
Right.
Yeah, I can't imagine it would be the nicest smelling place in the world.
Right.
But I just, I don't know. I guess I just looked at her more like as someone who has kids now and they want to have a childhood. And yes, there's this war going on. Their dad is away, you know, all of this stuff, but she still is a child and she should be allowed to have a childhood.
Yeah.
And apart from burning Joe's manuscript, which I think still has such a punch when you know the film is very comforting and beautiful. We have great costumes, we have great set dressing. You know, I love the attic where they put on their plate. I love all of the aesthetics of like how this movie looks. And then when we get the burnt manuscript and the camera just like like shoots into
I
the
know. I
fireplace
know.
and suddenly we're screaming and yelling and fighting, it's like it just rips you out of this kind of like lull
Yeah.
that the put you in. And you think about writing a manuscript by hand, and the one thing that she wants is to be an author and to be a writer. And it's like, so apart from her doing that,
But
I don't
here's the
know.
thing, right? To me, that's so relatable because I have destroyed things of my sister. Like,
Mm-hmm.
not as much as where something can't be. I mean, obviously Joe rewrites it, but and I think maybe I've told this story here or on Total Betty, but I was very good at putting together like Legos and doll houses when I was younger. So my
Mm-hmm.
parents would get Sam, something to put together and they'd be like, "Michelle, you do it." And so I built Sam this like castle. I think it was Playmobil maybe. And
Sure.
Sam bothered me. And so I took it at the top of the stairs and I threw it down the stairs and it broke into
Yeah.
a million pieces. And I said, "Deal with it." And my parents were like, "You need to put that back." I was like, "I'm not. No, I'm not." And Sam cried hysterically. And I was like, "Nope, don't mess with me. I'll ruin you."
Yeah. The kids, yeah, they don't think about restraint. They
Right.
just think, well, I'm gonna hurt you
That's
in the
right.
worst way that I possibly can. I don't remember doing that to any of my
Yeah,
siblings.
I can't imagine you guys were like that.
I mean, we could fight for sure. What I do remember, and again, I don't know if I've told this story before, and this is like one of the most evil things I've ever done. When I was a kid, this is so horrible. As a kid, I got mad at my mom, and so I took a stuffed animal. It was Hush Puppy from Lamb Chops
Yeah.
Saint Alon,
Yeah.
and I shoved it in the space behind the toilet and the wall, and then I peed all over it
Oh,
and left it there.
wow. I feel like that's
Like I
very
crammed.
like I am mad. I mark territory. I am mad.
I guess so. I mean, I would have been like 5, you know, so I don't think I was quite thinking of it that way. But I just like shoved this puppet into this like little teeny tiny hole, and I made it so that like it wasn't popping out either way, and then just, yeah, just peed all over it and left it there because I was like, she's gonna find this and she's gonna pick it up and find it to be like covered in pee. And you know what?
Wow.
I never heard it. I don't know what happened.
It's probably still in the wall. You know what? I'm seeing your mom tomorrow. I'll tell her to check behind the toilet.
There you go.
I'll bring it
There you
up.
go.
I'll bring it up.
But that was like evil, and like
Yeah,
that is like
right.
such a horrible thing to do to a person. But when you're a kid, you just want to hurt someone.
Yeah, and Amy, she's just mad at Joe because Joe gets to go to the theater.
Yeah.
And she's making her do her studies because Amy gets struck at school
Yeah.
and for the limes. And so she's just jealous. So
Yeah.
let's seek revenge.
Mhm.
Can you imagine? We see Amy on her way to school and they're walking in the snow and she has her math homework on a chalkboard and it falls in the
Oh
snow
my
and it
God.
gets erased. Like, can you imagine your homework getting erased by the snow?
No, and she's like
I know.
blast.
Blast.
And then I can't remember what word she uses after that, but Meg says, "Don't say what is it? Don't say awful. It's
Yeah.
slang or something."
They say that upstairs. I wrote that down. Yeah, when they're in the
It's
attic.
a word. It's like
Don't say awful. It's slang.
I don't think the word is awful, but it's like wait, that's slang? Oh my.
Yeah. And then of course the another scene that we get very upset about is when Amy falls in the pond from
Right.
ice skating
Right.
because it's too
Right.
which actually Kirsten fell in a hot tub, so she actually enjoyed it.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's nice. Yes. Yeah, and Joe realizes,
Yeah.
the error of her
Of
ways and hating her
course.
and not talking to her and yeah.
Of course. When Beth gets diagnosed with scarlet fever and
Mhm.
Amy has to be sent away, Lori takes her in the carriage to go live with Aunt March. And
Yes.
Amy says, I don't want to die. She's having a conversation about dying. And she says to Lori, I've never even been kissed. And he says, I promise to kiss you before you die. So I feel like this
Yeah.
is just setting us up for her and Lori. And so
Yeah.
4 years later, we have a different Amy, which people do have issue with this because they feel like it should have been the same actor portraying Amy. But to me, she's such a child versus who she
Yeah.
becomes. You cannot have the same person. It won't be the same effect to me anyway.
I think it's great to change them.
Yeah.
If anything, it might give the wrong amount of time passing. Like I was like, wait, are we like 10 years later?
Yeah, because they say it's 4 years later.
Right. And so going from like Kirsten Dunst to Mathis is like,
I know.
it's a big jump.
Yeah.
Maybe they could have hired someone who was like a little bit younger.
Yeah, they were talking about Reese
but-
Witherspoon.
Oh, okay. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
That would have been,
Yeah.
yeah, I can see that. But I like it. And yeah, that was one of my biggest gripes with the Gerwig version was like having Florence Pugh be both.
I know.
It was weird when she was young. So
Yeah.
I thought it worked. Here. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think of Amy as an adult? I feel like it makes sense that she does mature because she's off living with Aunt March. She's working on painting and she is more refined.
Yeah, I mean the story is that she's going to marry Frederick, right?
No. Frederick is
What's his name?
who Joe ends up.
Oh, what's her
Vaughn. Freddie Vaughn?
Fred.
Yeah.
She's going to marry this guy because he has money.
Mm-hmm.
And Lori, which, I'm sure we'll talk about Lori, but you get this like switcheroo in Europe where Amy becomes a nice person and Lori becomes a really not nice person.
Yeah.
And so he's just, just riding these girls, except for Beth. He's mocking Meg at the party, and then Joe, and then Amy. And it's like, you know what, man? Do something with your life. Like, leave these girls alone. But
Yeah.
But I love her, and I loved her, I think, more this time around.
Yeah, me too.
And it's good to show that people can change. You and I talk about how absurd it is when in a movie or like in a TV show, you show all this time has changed, but the person, they have to like link back to the person that they used to be. And it's like, no, that's not the way it is. Like the bad way of doing this would be like if Amy pulled a lime out of her pocket or something
Right.
to tell us who it was the same person. It's like they let her be a totally different new person because 4 years have gone
And
by
she
and she has
matured.
lived. Yes, she's matured and
I I absolutely agree. Last but not least, out of the March sisters, we have Joe, Nona
And we
Ryder.
could talk about Joe for 2 hours, I think.
I know. I mean, again, not to leave her for last, but I feel like there's so much to say about her, and then we could sum her up in like 2 words. She's perfect. No, I meant what I meant by that is Winona is perfect as Joe.
Yes.
Not that Joe is a
Winona.
perfect person.
Yes. No.
Yeah.
No, Joe is the friend that you have who is like super cool and super funny, but then you spend a lot of time with them and you're like, you know what? You need to chill a little bit. Like
What? No way.
like just well, because her and Lori get along because both of them are judgmental. Both of them have this like idealized version of the March sisters and what they should do with their lives and who should marry who. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
When Meg's glove is missing, she's like, he stole it.
Yeah. See, I took that as Joe not wanting anything to change. And this is the conflict of I want to change. I want to become an author, but like I actually don't want my sister to get married. And like John is a goonberry. Like out of all of the men, that's who you're gonna choose. He stole the glove. It's been in his pocket.
Right.
That is weird. He's been carrying the pocket. I mean, glove in the pocket.
Well, I think back then you would have love keepsakes, right? People would put hair in a locket, I think. Right?
So strange. Hair in a locket.
Yeah. I think like to be around Joe in real life would be exhausting.
I think that's how people feel about me because I feel like I am Joe.
Well, I think that's how people feel about me too. But
are we 2 Joes? We're 2 Joes.
But she is like the type of friend that you want. Like she helps, churn the butter of this family, and she helps, move she's like the little fire in the house.
Right. She's the creative one. She comes up with all these stories. She has you act out these roles. They have this, their sister newspaper. They dress the cats up. I'm like, this is my life right here.
Yeah. Yeah. The sister newspaper is incredible. It's so great. And when we go to Beth's hope chest later, there's nothing, it's like a hope chest is stuff that you put in it for when you're going to start your own house. Right. So you get like silverware and blankets and whatever. And Beth's has none of that stuff. It just has all the memories of her and her sisters. It's just like it's a great example of how to use like the same prop, because earlier in the movie we see the newspapers, we're like, they're so cool, they're funny and quirky and weird, and then you see it later like in that context and you're just like, I'm crying uncontrollably.
Right. And also provides the inspiration for Joe to write what has been in her the entire time and to get away from vampires and murder.
She gives that horrible advice at the beginning. She says, don't write what you know.
I know.
And I'm like, Joe, that's the opposite of what you should be doing.
Well, again, you're young and this is what you think and you're writing what you enjoy.
I would love to read Joe's vampire stuff.
I'm like, that's what I want to read.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to talk about her and Lori's relationship.
Sure.
Should we talk about Lori first? Should we just tie him in to Joe?
However you want to. I do have my thought about the dad.
Yeah, no, it's coming. I didn't forget.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so Lori, played by Christian Bale, so incredibly charming.
Yes.
Does a great job connecting with these sisters. But like, I can't help but wonder, like this, you love these sisters so much, but you truly just want to be in with the family, which I get. And then Joe later on does say something along the lines of like, I knew you would always be with one of us.
Yeah.
Tell me your feelings on Lori with the male perspective, the male gaze on Lori. Give it to me, Seth.
Right. I mean, it's hard to watch this movie a second time and not think about all of Lori's kind of motivations during the first half of the movie.
Yeah.
Because he says to Joe, I've loved you since I first clamped eyes on you, which I thought was a great,
so aggressive,
great little, And it makes sense. They're the same age, right? When he's going to college, she says, "Oh, I wish I was
Mm-hmm.
going to college too."
Mm-hmm.
And so, of the four sisters, it makes sense that he would gravitate towards like romantic feelings for her first. And so, did he want to get close to all of the girls in order to get close to Joe?
I don't think so.
Did he? Right. And like, there's different ways that you can look at Lori, which is like, yes, who wouldn't want to be one of the March girls, basically? Like,
Right.
who wouldn't want to? I think that the tutor,
Yeah.
John,
Yeah,
right?
John Brooke.
I don't think that John Brooke wants to be one of the March girls.
No.
I think that he loves Meg and wants to start a family, and right. Lori wants to be one of the gang, and I don't know that he's like deviously, again, in the first half of the movie, I don't know that he's like deviously just trying to work his way in any way that he can. I think that they're just like an island for him, like
Yeah.
this fantasy world away from, he's a musician and he knows that he's not going to be a musician because his grandfather won't let him. And yet here's this world where he can be anything that he wants. Yeah, I love it. I love Bale in this role. We talked at great length about Bale when we covered Newsies and how awesome it is to see him in these like happy, pleasant roles, because nowadays, primarily he's doing intense, angry, or scary or sad stuff. And I think that he's like the perfect Laurie, because for the first half of the movie, he's so charming
Yeah.
and
And genuine.
romantic and yeah, like just all of the great things. And then he's able to flip this switch with his little goatee where you're like, "Oh, Laurie, you're a bad guy." Like,
Yeah.
you're kind of freaking me out a little bit.
Well, right. I know. I feel okay. So I love Lori, and I will admit, when I was a kid and when I was younger, and multiple times on the watch, it always truly did annoy me that him and Joe didn't end up together,
Yeah.
because I'm like, these two are perfect for one another. And to be honest with you, when he proposes to her, she says like we would fight all the time. We would
Yeah.
bicker, and I'm like, we didn't really see that enough in this
Yeah.
movie. In this version,
Right.
we didn't see these two
Right.
like butting heads. We just saw them as like besties, true
Yeah.
besties who have like a genuine love for one another. And so
Yeah.
she turns him down, and I always took that, and I, again, a part of my life, turn that down if I can't say yes because I need to go off and find myself.
Yeah.
And until I'm happy or become the person I want to become, I can't say yes to a proposal, which when Aunt proposed to me, I didn't wear my ring and I didn't get married for 3 years because I wasn't
Hmm.
happy with where I was at in my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So Joe, again, in this moment is like speaking. This is how I write it anyway.
Yeah.
That's how I related it to it. Anyway, time goes by, and that's when we get evil. You get a no from Joe, and you get that awful facial hair situation.
Well, yeah, it completely destroys his whole life, because I think if Joe goes with him, then the fantasy continues.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes, he might go into the family business, he might become a fuddy-duddy, but he'll always have that link to childhood, which is what he's trying to maintain. He doesn't care about his studies, he doesn't care,
No.
whatever. And so when she rejects him, it's like, okay, well, what do I have now? Like, I don't have anybody, I don't have anything, and I guess I have to grow up. And Lori, unfortunately, as a stunted, handsome man, doesn't want to grow up.
It's just what
He's a rich
he's a
boy.
rich boy, and he proposes to her like, we go to London. The way he
Mhm.
like sells it to her, I'm like, to me, Joe would take this offer. I don't know. I feel like this is like the one part of the movie that I have an issue with, and I feel like it just needed to be portrayed a little bit differently for
Yeah,
me to
I
really believe
love
it.
I love when she's like, I can't just go be a wife.
Yeah. Well,
And he's like, you will, and it won't be with me. And she's like, no, I won't. He's like, you will.
you will. You'll
And it's
find
like,
someone.
dang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just it's interesting too, like when she's helping him pack for Harvard and she's like, you have to take this book, you have to take that book. And he's like, I'm not taking these books. Later on, when we're meeting Frederick
Right.
and she's in his room and he has all the books and he's like, oh, I could never have left without the books. And you're like,
Right.
here we go. Here we go.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. 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 Love. Yeah. I love Laurie though. I love him. I feel bad for him.
I do too. And so he matures and then he sees Amy and he's kind of like poking fun at her. And Amy catches on. She's like, I'm not going to be second best just because you couldn't get Joe. You're not sliding in here. And she kind of gives him the talk of like, go make something of yourself. And that's what causes him to go work for the family business.
Yeah. I think when you're a kid and you watch this, it's like, how could you just go and marry a different sister? And then you grow up and you're like, oh, it's because time changes, people change,
right.
situations change. Yeah. And I don't think that when Laurie and Amy were in the carriage and he was like, oh, I'll kiss you, I don't think that he was trying to be romantic.
I don't either. And no.
I think he was being
nice,
comforting. A nicer, older person who, your sister's dying back there. You're being sent away.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it's like, oh, everyone should tell kids that you'll kiss them before they die, but I just don't take it as like, oh, this is the start of their romance together. No, I don't think so at all.
Yeah. When Joe goes to live in New York, because she has this amazing talk with Marmee of like, I want to change, but I can't. And Marmee says, you're not an ordinary you're an extraordinary person. How do you expect to live an ordinary life?
Yeah.
Dead, deceased at this moment, personally.
Yeah.
So she goes off. She goes to New York. She wants to write, and she meets Frederick Bear. How do you feel? How do you feel about him? Because again, when I was younger, I was like, he's so old. Here's me being an ageist. He's too old for her. I don't see what she sees. With older eyes, I get it. I get it a little bit more.
I get it. And maybe in 15 years, I'll get all of Frederick.
Yes.
But the part that just bothers me, it still bothers me so much, is Joe is working in this, what do you call this kind of house?
It's
a boarding house.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. She's here. She's working in this boarding house. She's writing. She's funny and telling people that women should vote because they're humans, not because they're good. And she's got all this stuff going on and she's getting published. And Frederick is just kind of like, nah, it's not that great. And I just want to be like, Frederick, I get the point that she's not living up to her potential. But like, you can do both, bro. Like,
I know.
You can be like, oh my God, here, let's go out to dinner to celebrate you getting published because this is what you want. And then let's talk about what you're going to work on next. Or, like, just, it bothers me. So I just want to reach through the screen and like choke him.
I know. I felt the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Gabriel Byrne, I don't know if you noticed in the credits, he gets the first.
Yes.
He gets top billing in the opening credits. Gabriel Byrne.
What the heck?
And so at first I was like, oh, maybe it's alphabetical. Nope.
I thought the same thing. And I didn't really see anything about that in my research.
Yeah. And I love Gabriel Byrne, and I think that he plays Frederick well. It is like quite shocking, the age difference. Yeah. Like you've got early 90s Winona Ryder.
She's like, and she's portraying someone who's in like Joe at this point is like early 20s.
Yeah. So it is pretty shocking. I don't know. How do you feel about their last line together?
It's sweet. It doesn't bother me. I think it looks.
I like it.
It looks beautiful. The colors that are happening on screen and underneath the umbrella, and it's raining. I think it's truly beautiful. So I accept it.
It's a little corny.
It is, but again, I love it so much, so I do allow
Yeah.
it. It's like when I
Eh,
love a
If
movie,
you
I'll let in corn, you know?
Yeah, if you don't remember, listener, the final line of the film, Frederick says to her, "I have nothing to give you. My hands are empty." And then Winona grabs his hand and she says, "They're not empty anymore." And I really kind of feel like it's just Winona's line
Yeah, I
delivery.
know. Yeah.
I think that you could I don't know. It's a little corny, but at this point I'm just happy.
Yeah, because they're going to open a school together because
Mhm.
Aunt March passes away and leaves Joe Plumfield, which I love that we name houses. So,
Absolutely.
I love it.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's talk about Marmee, Susan Sarandon, and Dad. I don't. I didn't. I'm gonna be honest with you. I didn't look up who played Dad, Mr. March.
Okay, well, let me make my point about the
Yeah,
dad because
go.
that's a good segue into my point about the dad,
Yeah.
which is the film starts out with these wonderful, intelligent, beautiful girls who are loving and giving, but there's a tragedy, and the tragedy is that their father is away at war, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when Amy gets struck and she's at the gate, Joe thinks that it's a message, oh, is it father? No, I got hit. Right. So there's just this looming thing over the whole movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Marmee has to go away because he's injured. Joe sells her hair,
Your one true
which is
beauty.
that was the maybe the first part of the movie where I really, really cried. When
Really?
she Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. When she takes her
Yeah.
head covering off
Yeah.
and reveals her short hair.
Yeah.
And my son was like, "Why would she sell her hair?" Like, because they needed money. And he's like, "Well, who?" He was like, "What's someone gonna do with with hair?" I was like, "Well, wigs and stuff." He's like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense." But yeah, because it's just such a Joe thing to do, and like, you know. Anyway, that makes me cry a lot. Then the father comes home, and then it's like, you will never see this man again.
We only see him, I think, in one scene when Beth passes away, and they're all dressed in black, and they say like Amy can't come home because Aunt March is sick.
Yeah.
He's in the back.
We see him at the wedding.
He's at the sure. He's at the
Yeah.
wedding. He's in the background, but like that's it. That's it.
I it, it's
Is it
crazy.
though? We
It's
don't need him at this point.
crazy.
We
No,
don't need
it's just
him. He's home and
I know,
safe.
but
He's
like
home and safe.
I know, but it's just like to have so many, they don't have money. They're putting all their groceries on credit. Like his absence is like the linchpin for everything that's
Yeah.
happening. And then he comes home and it's this big, oh, father's finally here. And then he's just not around anymore. It's so funny. I don't mind it. I don't care. I want to know about the March sisters and Marmee and Lori.
Yeah.
But it's just like you couldn't just have him pop in every once in a while and be like, hey, good to see you, Joe. How's the
Or
book
I'm so
coming?
proud of you or something.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. Nope.
How do you feel about Marmee?
Marmie's great. I hate her name so
It's a term
much.
of endearment.
Hey, I'm not one to talk,
Mm-hmm.
There are certain words that really, really bug me,
Yeah, I get
which I
that.
think I've shared before.
Yeah, I have that too. If we're just making a list here on Movie Friends, Mayshell has brought on Money Mud and
Oh,
Marmee. So I
and Marmie.
can't
Yeah.
wait to see what the rest of the month brings you.
It's so it's like a weird thing because I love Marmie the character, but
Yeah.
I'm like, can we call her
I know.
anything else, please? Just call her mom,
I know.
like just once. But yeah, Marmie's great. Sarandon is great as Marmie. She's so like strong. Like she's like a snake. Like I think of her like as a snake.
Whoa.
She's like around, not in a bad way, like in a good way.
No one
Like she's
ever
around,
describes someone as a snake in a good way. So this is very interesting to me
and then she just like strikes.
when she has to.
It's like boom, I'm
Hmm.
going to the hospital. Boom, I'm writing this letter. Boom, you know.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, so she's like, you know, you see her around and she's just kind of like doing stuff, and
I feel like your mom is Marmee.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I'm getting Mrs. Vargas
yeah.
vibes. Yeah.
I think it's interesting when Joe says to Frederick later in the movie, she's like, "Oh, my parents are kind of different. Do you know what transcendentalism is?"
Mm-hmm.
Which was like this reaction to the way of thinking in New England
Mm-hmm.
in like the 1800s, and there's like a real thing, real like philosophical and ethical like movement, and we know that's a big reason why like Aunt March is so against them and not happy because, you know, her nephew and wife have decided to become like hippies of the day kind of, and
Right. Yep.
so yeah, Marmee rules, man.
She's so
Just
great.
give me a different name, please.
Marmee without the marm.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
In preparing for this episode, I saw a lot of people say that this isn't a movie with a plot, it's just a series of vignettes.
Yeah, I saw that too.
I've never felt that way. Did you feel that way this time?
No, not at all. No.
I didn't feel that way at
I don't
all.
know how they could say there's no plot.
Right. Like, yeah, we start out Civil War, poor family, dad gets hurt, Lori shows up. Like,
I know. And it's moving.
we're not bouncing around to random events. There are things that happen. I just don't understand.
Right.
Like, that really struck me. I heard one person say it,
Yeah.
and then I heard like 5 other people
Yeah.
say it, and I was like, am I crazy
I
here?
read that.
I've never seen
I
it.
read that in a lot of the research I was doing. I was like, wow. But you know what though? I was like, maybe I'm just too far in it. You know, like obviously I love this.
And that's, yeah.
So maybe I'm not seeing it that way, but like even still, I don't agree. I don't know. I really can't even try to see it that way.
Yeah, I also can't. Like, I was thinking about like burning the hair and
Yeah.
twisting the ankle, and
Yeah.
he put snow on your ankle with his hand.
Sweet Amy. Sweet Amy.
Yeah, just like all of the little moments that make up the movie, but it just doesn't feel that way. So I was curious.
Yeah. It took 12 years to find a studio for this. Did you
Hmm.
read that?
Yeah.
That it took 12 years?
I don't want to say I'm not surprised,
Yeah.
but I guess that kind of makes sense.
They were like this film was looked at as a needle in the eye movie where men would not want to go because they'd rather put a needle in their eye.
Right, yeah. No, I'm not saying I would
No.
wait 12 years to make this movie,
Sure.
but I think it makes sense that they couldn't quite pull it together.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, you look at it now and it's like, it's probably a good thing that it took so long, because how perfect is this cast? And
Yeah, when they did the screening, they had, you know, male execs sit in and they were really not looking forward to it. And by the end, they were crying. And they're like, wow, we'll give you more money. Here's more money. What do you need? We'll provide it for you.
And that's exactly what happens in the book. You know, she's rejected.
Yes.
Like, go to a women's magazine. And then she just tells the story. And he's like, oh, actually, this is an incredible story.
Yeah.
And like I said, it feeds into this, I think, extremely relatable thing. Whether you're Joe or Beth or Meg or Amy or Lori,
Mm-hmm.
and then later on in life, Marmee,
Mm-hmm.
you know, who wouldn't want to be in that house? Who wouldn't want to be part of them? And so, yeah, I think it is a story. Like we mentioned, there's so many adaptations of this. It is, I think, an American institution, definitely, this story. And yeah, it's universal. It has nothing to do with, I think you call this anything else and it's still just as good.
You mean titling wise? What do you mean calling it? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, like it's not like, okay, women is in the title. right? So we're like, oh, okay, this is a book for girls or this is a movie for what? No, call it anything. Call it anything you want,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And maybe it would be perceived differently
Right.
and it would just be seen as like a great story, not a story for women.
Yeah. I didn't really do any research ever on this. Like, I looked up set design, and I've always wanted to go to Concord to see Luisa's house, which Matt has gone to, friend to the show,
Mm-hmm.
uh, it's on my bucket list to visit there. But the only thing I knew from a very young age was that obviously it's a woman author, woman director, woman producer, it's woman writer, screenplay. So that to me was like super, super important.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's awesome.
it's
It's
awesome.
great.
So the budget was, I was reading between 15 and 18 mil. It made 95 mil.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Yeah. It has a 92% rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Nice.
So much higher than last week's Camp Nowhere of, I think, 17%. Letterboxd 3.8, Metacritic 87. Ebert gave it 3.5.
Oh, good.
So we asked some friends on Twitter to see what they thought. Seth, did anybody reach out?
They did. This was like a great response
Yeah.
for this movie.
I saw that you
oh yeah.
asked for feedback on Instagram as well.
People love this movie,
Awesome.
including Felicia at Cinemaroni.
Yay.
She says, "Still my favorite adaptation of Little Women. This book meant a lot to me growing up, and as someone who absolutely loved Jo, I love Winona's portrayal of her because let's be honest, she's the best in everything."
True.
This is our second Winona, right? We did Edward Scissorhands and this.
Yeah.
What a 1-2 punch
I know, right?
those two movies are, right?
Let's keep it coming.
Holy cow.
More Winona.
Betsy at Gorm_Betsy.
We love Betsy.
She says, "This is one of my all-time favorites. 3 exclamation points. It's my comfort movie. Feeling sick? Little Women. Feeling sad? Little Women. Feeling happy and just want something familiar? Little Women. I love it so much."
Wow.
And I agree. I think this is a movie for all year round, you know.
Yeah, not for me, as I'm realizing, but I do love that for you, Betsy.
Josie
Josie.
at the_other_JB, which I thought meant Jack Black, but it turns out it means Justin Bieber.
Oh.
She says, "I watched this movie so much growing up that I remember the trailers that played in front of it on the VHS we had. The perfect movie exists in this film, from the score to the acting to the everything, really. It is near and dear to me, and I rewatch it every year."
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And then she posted a picture of the VHS copy that she had.
I had the VHS and the DVD. I probably still have those, actually.
Yeah, I went to rent this, and the purchase price was like, $1 more or $2 more. So I was like, boop,
Yeah, same.
purchase.
I just purchased it as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Karen Vera at Details Later.
Yes, Details Later.
Who, by the way, clarified.
Oh.
It is not Detail Slater.
Oh, good.
It is Details Later.
Thanks for clarifying.
As I speculated.
Yeah.
Yes. She says, "Jillian greater than Greta, as I live and breathe. Better cast, told a deeper and more emotional story than 2019. It's a delight that has Thomas Newman's score to just make you instantly amazed."
Yes.
And yeah, we said we didn't want to, compare the two movies too much, which is hard to do because they both exist and everyone has seen both of them. And like I said, for me, this one just focuses so much more on the home, even like the final shot, right?
Mhm.
After they're under the umbrella, we just kind of like zoom in and up onto like the house. And it just feels like everything is like pulling. It's like the home is like a black hole, and I mean it in a good way,
Yeah.
where it's just like people come and go, but everyone gets pulled back into, including Mr. Lawrence, the old dude, and Aunt March, and Teddy's friends from college. And you know what I mean? Like everyone's just kind of getting pulled back into the home. Like that feels like so much of the center of this movie, where Greta's version feels like it's more about like the individual
Yeah.
characters,
Mm-hmm.
and being a woman on the whole, you know, which is also good.
Yeah.
But I do like this one better.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
I mean, I do too. So
But they're very different movies. So
yeah.
Astro Bridge at X Astro Bridge X
Astro Bridge.
says, I just remember being young and seeing a moment when Christian Bale kisses Winona Ryder, or one of the girls, and when they finish, a strain of spit briefly stretches between their faces, and as a youngster, I was absolutely disgusted. That's all I remember.
I'm so glad you sent that. That's so great. Thank you for sharing
Isn't that great?
Yeah, that's great. That's amazing.
And finally, Paul Muad'Dib at Trig Raptor
Dune Buggy.
says, a few years ago around Christmas, my wife and I watched 3 different versions of Little Women. 2019, the PBS miniseries with Maya Hawke,
Yep.
which I haven't
I've
seen. I
watched that.
never even heard of.
Yep.
That sounds cool. And this one. They're all wonderful in their own ways. Here, I especially love Susan Sarandon as Miss March, and the great scene where Joe turns Lori down, and then a heart emoji with a bandage on it.
It's so great. Yeah, I watched that PBS miniseries, and I didn't love it. I also, growing
Yeah.
up, there was this animated movie. It was like Little Women Christmas. It's also a 2-season series I saw from like the 80s.
Oh,
Animated series. And I was trying to find this particular video and I couldn't. But yeah, Little Women's been with me for ever.
nice.
Yeah.
Quick side note. How do you feel about Anne of Green Gables?
You know, I would like to revisit it because my babysitter we definitely watched and read Anne of Green Gables.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I should revisit that. And also then I think of like Secret Garden, which I also really love.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, to be honest with you, Seth, I pitched around the idea of just doing the Little Women movies this month. Because I really have wanted to do that. Like do like an exploration of the films, but I haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
I haven't done that yet.
Got it.
All right, so we heard from some people that we do know. Let's go to a segment of the show where we hear from people that we don't know. It's called Half Star, 3-Star, 5-Star. Half Star, 3-Star, 5-Star. These are reviews from letterboxd.com. We start with a half-star review, which is the lowest rating you can give a movie, and we go all the way up to a 5-star review, which is the highest rating you can give a movie. These were tough, Seth. These were really
I can't imagine.
Tough.
I really thought you might just skip this segment, to be honest.
No. I'll stay put in the segments. Obviously, I'm not going to trick you and, try to do an impression like last week. So,
yeah.
I'm just going to read the half-star review.
Okay.
Unfinishable. Too feminist. I fast-forwarded just to see what Christian did with the big scene. He did well, of course. Half-star.
Moving on.
Yeah.
I don't even want to talk about that.
You can't even, well, I'm sure you can. The amount of reviews that just talk about how much they love Christian Bale in this, how hot he is. Also just like Greta's better. This is
I mean, Christian Bale is great in this, but there's a lot of other people in it too.
Right. Okay, 3-star review. Very 90s and very awkward. The biggest issue for me is how rushed most of this movie feels. Between character motivation or how out of nowhere romances happen, it really feels ingenuine. Although I really liked seeing all these actors in the same movie, it just feels like there could have been another 20 minutes added to the pacing. So I wanted to talk to you about that. How did you feel about the pacing of this? Because we do get this time jump. We talked a little bit about it. Did you feel like this movie dragged? No, I didn't either.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. And I mean, yes, there's time jumps, but we're covering a period of like 5 years.
Yeah.
So
Even more than that.
Yeah.
All right. 5-star says a perfect movie. Every time I watch it, I'm struck by how lovingly shot and considered each frame is. Not in a distracting or pretentious way, but one where the film just radiates warmth and goodness. You can tell everyone involved loves the material and each other. It's just beautiful. Throw in Thomas Newman's masterpiece of a score and the wondrous performances, and it is endlessly rewarding. I have to agree.
Very nice. I like that one.
Okay, so we rate a movie as a movie, a schmovie, or a film. We also give our rating, our final thoughts, our review. We're also going to introduce a new segment called Happies and Crappies.
It's time for Happies and Crappies. Happies and Crappies. It's time for Happies and Crappies. Happies and Crappies.
Yes, very exciting.
So, Seth, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
I will go first.
Okay.
To set you up.
Okay, start with your happies and crappies. So if this is your first time listening and you're confused, a couple of episodes ago, I told Seth what happies and crappies are, and apparently Seth didn't know what that was.
Right.
So you give your happy of the day and you give your crappy of the day.
Right.
So I was like, let's do this on the podcast.
My happy is just the warmth of home and the love of a family, you know?
Okay.
Because like I said, I think that that's what's pulling everybody in. My crappy is some of the New York stuff with Joe. I don't hate it and it doesn't drag, but I'm just like, all right, we get it. Frederick, whatever.
I know, as a kid, this was like my least favorite part.
Yeah. Like, all right, let's see what the other people are up to.
Right.
Yeah.
Should I reveal what I thought you would rate this?
Yeah.
Okay. In the beginning, I wrote down that you were going to rate this 4.5 stars.
Oh, very good. I am going to rate this 4.5 stars. I was teetering between 4, which is a great film to me, and 5, which is a perfect film to me. And I landed on 4.5, which I call almost perfect. And I love this movie. And I was so glad to revisit it and see that I still love this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this is a film. I should have called it a film, but. And I recommend that you watch it, especially if you haven't seen it. Even if you know all the story beats, you don't know what Claire Danes' face looks like as she's on her deathbed. You don't know what Kirsten Dunst is like when she's talking about limes. You got to see this movie.
Okay. My happies and crappies for this one. My happy is like all of it, which is just as a cop out, but in particular when they're dressing up the cat. I love it. I love it so much. And seeing the sisters in the attic being creative, writing stories and performing them. And when they induct Lori in, I love it so much.
Oh,
I love
great.
it. I love it. I love it. My crappy, probably just the scene of Lori and Joe's proposal. I just wish maybe.
Wow.
I don't know. Maybe we see them bicker a little bit more in the film. So when she says that line of like, we'd kill each other, we're both stubborn. And
yeah,
I just need to see that a little bit more.
Okay, so I wrote down that you are going to rate this 5 stars.
You are correct. What gave it away? Wow, we both did so well. We predicted each other's ratings.
Yeah.
And I'm also rating this a film.
5-star film.
5-star film.
Wow.
And I am 100% recommending this. And I'm not going with my usual to follow of, oh, if you're into this, then you should watch it. No, I'm recommending this to everybody because I think there's something in it that everybody could enjoy.
Yes. I think, you can quote me on this.
Okay.
I think that Little Women is part of the 1990s absolute must-see American film canon.
Yeah, I like that.
No question. If you want to say Pulp Fiction and you want to say Saving Private Ryan, you have to include Little Women for American films.
How did you...
If we open up to the whole world, But
yeah. How did Job like this?
He liked it. Both of my kids, my one son is 11, my one son is 3, and they both sat there and watched the whole thing, enraptured.
Wow.
Yep. Yep. Hey, if you're sitting there enraptured, we'd love it if you give us a rating and a review. I wonder if people think that we pre-write those.
I was thinking that. I was also thinking about doing that so you wouldn't have to do this, but it's
I
real.
wonder, you should start trying to test me. You should just start putting in the most random word you can into your final thoughts.
Yeah, I will do that.
Anyway,
Okay.
hey, if you're enraptured, we'd love it if you give us a rating and a review. It really does help the show succeed and beat out all those other podcasts, which is what this is really about, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's
Being
what we're
the
here
best.
for this.
Absolutely.
I keep saying that I'm here for friendship. No, I'm here to effing
Right.
win.
Yeah, we want to be the very best, like no one ever was. You can also send us an email, moviefriendspodcast@gmail.com. Let us know what you think. What did we miss out talking about Little Women? A lot. I can
So
guarantee
much.
you.
I have a whole paragraphs that I wanted to share.
You can also support the show, patreon.com/moviefriendspodcast. $5 a month gets you access to all of our additional episodes, which we are almost done with our Freaks and Geeks series, by the way. Episode 17 will be out by the time this one comes out, and it's just one more. We're working through our series on Seventh Heaven, which is a lot of fun, I can tell you. And hey, that's a shorter series, so we've got something else coming up down the line. I got something cooking that Michelle doesn't even know about. I know.
When are you gonna?
I just shocked
When
Michelle.
are you gonna tell me? Or is it not for Michelle's ears and eyes? Not everything has to involve me, and I have to
Michelle,
take myself out of that.
this is Michelle can't know about this one.
Oh man. Oh, all right. I respect it.
You also get access to our patron-only Discord, which maybe you've been listening, you don't know what Discord is. It's just a big group chat. You also get voting rights for monthly episodes, and each quarter you get to vote on a monthly theme. And like I said at the top of the show, June is coming. That is a patron-selected theme. So if you've been clamoring for us to do silent movies or documentaries, we haven't done Bollywood. We haven't done late stage Clint Eastwood directed films. Hey, you can get however crazy you want us to do all of the Minion movies. Please, God,
Although
no.
I've been on the Minion ride, so
Oh my gosh, of course you have.
I've never seen the movies, but I've been on the ride.
Anyway, if you sign up, you get your chance to torture us with things like that. So, Michelle, what are we watching next?
Okay. Next week, we're going in 1950, and we're going to be
Ooh.
watching Harvey, starring Jimmy Stewart.
Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah, unfortunately,
Okay.
this isn't streaming anywhere for free, but it is available to rent. So I
Okay.
apologize. If you have the DVD,
Classic
pop
movie.
that in. Seth, have you seen this?
I have seen it once,
Okay, cool.
so I'll be glad to revisit.
I feel like this is my film for film podcasts.
This is the serious Michelle movie.
Even though it's not that serious. Don't you feel like, though, I'm like a Cheez-It maturing? We started off with Camp Nowhere. We went to Little Women. Now we're...
A cheese?
Yeah, you know the commercial with the Cheez-Its? And they're like, you're just not mature enough yet. And there's a doctor. See if the
No.
Cheez-Its mature. Okay, well, if you know what I'm talking about, reach out.
Okay.
But that's what this month is like. I am becoming a mature Cheez-It every week.
God, okay, yeah, I see it. I see the trajectory.
Thank you.
Camp Nowhere, Little Women, Harvey.
Mhm. And then the patrons
right.
get to choose from my list for the last week. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Do we move forward or do we move back into immaturity? The power is up to them.
Right. That's right. Thank you, Seth. Thanks for
Thanks, Michelle.
we did it. We finally did Little Women.
I know. I can't believe it.
Wow.
Took a long time to do, and we teared up a few times, but we didn't break down. So
Yeah, I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for listening, and have a good one.
Movie Friends is produced by Seth Vargas and Michelle Rubenstein. Music by Anthony Vicora. If you like the show, please subscribe and give us a rating. It really helps us find new friends. Thanks!